I want to introduce our panelists for our first panel. Topic is the role of public authorities in scaling up European electric vehicle charging infrastructure. And we're really lucky with the panelists that we have joining us today. We have Adriana Kamińska-Flak from the Transport Department at Katowice City Hall in Poland. And really impressively, Katowice is the first city in Poland to meet the electric mobility and EV deployment targets set under the Polish e-mobility law. So we're really lucky to have her to talk about that. We have Marek Popiołek, who's the head of the Department of Electric Mobility and Hydrogen Management at the Polish Ministry of Climate and Environment. And we have Arne Richters, who is a familiar face to many of us in the EV charging world. He is the head of public affairs and communications at Allego, another charge point operator, electric mobility provider. They work in 17 countries throughout Europe. He's also on the management committee of the Charging Industry Association, Charge Up Europe, and is on the board of directors of AVERE, the European Association of Electric Mobility. So with that, Rafal, please take it away.
Thank you, Aaron. So I have the pleasure of leading this first panel to remind the role of public authorities in scaling up European EV charging infrastructure. First of all, I would like to thank all speakers for accepting our invitation. I think that it would be good to lead our discussion in a way to define practical proposals, what needs to be done to scale up the charging infrastructure, and also what is the part of the public authorities in this respect. As Aaron said at the beginning, all questions are welcome. If you have any, please write it down into the conference application. We'll try to answer them at the end of the session. So, as you know, I represent GreenWay, the largest company dealing with charging infrastructure in Central and Eastern Europe. So because of that, we know quite well all circumstances that are related to the deployment of charging points and to what extent the public administration can support this initiative. One thing is certain here, without development of public infrastructure, it's impossible to develop electromobility. So charging stations in public places need to be further deployed. But we will talk also about barriers during this panel. So let me share some my thoughts at the beginning from the perspective of charging point operator. I think that for the time being, the key one in our region is still a low demand for charging services due to generally low number of EVs on our roads. It's generally a problem from the financial perspective of every CPO. It's difficult to keep the business when the revenues don't cover all operating costs of the infrastructure. Another problem that I see is sometimes too far-reaching regulations that generate additional costs and may significantly extend time necessary for the building of the stations. Another challenge, especially nowadays in Slovakia, are very high costs of electricity distribution fees that we pay to distribution system operators. By the way, we are in much better situation right now in Poland in this respect, but because just last week the Ministry of Climate published a new regulation implementing special e-tariff that reduces energy distribution costs for all public charging point operators from April next year. That's an important step forward and help generally to our industry. But as I said, this is the perspective of the charging point operator. So just one stakeholder of this whole electromobility ecosystem. So now I would like to ask you, what do you think? What are the main bottlenecks for large rollout of public charging infrastructure from your experience or perspective? Is it technology? It's regulation or market issues? Maybe let's start with the Western European perspective. So, Arne, could you please share your opinion on that? What's your opinion regarding the main bottlenecks for the large rollout of public charging infrastructure?
Yeah, I'll be happy to. I don't know if you can hear me all right.
Yes, we can hear you.
I think, okay, good. I think the main one we sort of view and see is process. So the challenge of rolling out a coherent system of public charging infrastructure, and is indeed an important component, but not the only component in EV charging market, is to define clear roles and responsibility on who's doing what. And from a CPO, which Allego is, our main stakeholders are, of course, the DSOs, the network companies, and public authorities that facilitate usually with the permitting of a particular location and basically the signage, freeing up 2 parking bays, what have you. And bringing that together into one smooth, one process, what we call sort of labor flow, is really important, because ultimately it starts with the request. Usually we've defined thinking about the right to plug. The beauty about our industry is electricity is everywhere. Let's make sure we tap into that system efficiently. Is that it starts with a request from a citizen, soon to be EV driver, or perhaps already an EV driver, who would like to realize a public charging station in the vicinity of his home. And that's where it starts. And then basically the request usually ends up with us. And we pass on that to the grid company to request whether or not in that area an easy hookup is made possible. And we wait for feedback. And once we have that, we then go to the municipality to ask already for a parking permit, usually to free up 2 parking bays and to get the signage up. But ultimately, we have targets to realize the whole process in. We'd like to see on the AC side, which a lot of public charging infrastructure in cities is, so regular charging, if you like. We'd like to see defined periods between 8 and 12 weeks to realize that. And for DC, which is fast charging, and is also an area that my company is active in, like you guys, we'd like to see 4 to 6 months. Why? Because this is the type of predictability we need to be able to scale up through time, because that's really important from a company point of view. You need predictability to make sure you can do the appropriate planning.
Okay, so the process is the key, and as I understand, Allego plays a role, a kind of facilitator to cooperate, to collaborate with other stakeholders like DSOs, of course, first of all, EV users, municipalities, to smoothen this process in a way that the charger is installed as fast as possible in the right location for every EV users, right? So let's compare it with the Polish experience. So now I am addressing the same question to Ms. Kamińska from the Katowice City Hall. What are your thoughts? What are the main problems or bottlenecks for the rollout of public charging infrastructure in Poland from your experience?
Thank you, Mr. Czyewski. Ladies and gentlemen, first of all, thank you for inviting me to this meeting, and I would like to kindly congratulate you on your such great effort and finally the successes in creating the charging infrastructure, because your contribution to the development of charging infrastructure, especially in Poland, is really meaningful. I'm very glad that also our city hall in Katowice have a pleasure to cooperate with GreenWay, because right now, actually from tomorrow, another 10 charging stations will be are under construction in the urban spaces. So for us it's a big deal, really, because thanks to this cooperation with private sector, right now we will have 134 charging points in our city. So it's even more than our Polish Act of Electromobility says should be built right now. So it's a success for us, but it's only thanks to our decision and the strategic decisions, because we decided to cooperate with the private sector, and it was the first city in Poland that decided to do it, not to wait when the public state-owned power energy companies just built this chain of the chargers on the public spaces. So, but speaking about the problems, the bottleneck or the obstacles, about 7 years ago, we established 2 chargers in the downtown. in Katowice, and they were free of charge. And believe me, I think those have never been used because simple reason, no electrical vehicles, no charging. So this was the lesson for us, that it was too early for Katowice, too early to Poland to start with this project so early. So we've been waiting about 3 years, and we noticed that since 2016, more and more citizens and private local companies started to ask whether the municipality will build the chargers, public chargers, when and where. And believe me that for us it was really hard decision, because there was lack of any legislation. So we couldn't sell the energy. We didn't know how to do it, how to become an operator of the infrastructure, how to hold the project, because we thought that it's a business issue. And in our opinion, the municipalities shouldn't be the main operator of the chargers, because for us it was, like I said, totally business issue. And when the Act of Electromobility came into force in 2018 and it allowed us to cooperate with private sector, it was the best solution for us. But to start this cooperation, we needed to be prepared, and we needed to prepare and select 30 public plots to start cooperation with you or the other operators that we picked up. And believe me, that was really hard days for us, because there are plenty of issues that must be checked, because as you know the best, there is much more easier to build an infrastructure on the private area, like malls or hotels, than instead of public road, when we have many other obligations that needed to be justified. So, for example, guarantees of pavements, municipal infrastructure which is already planned in the future, the municipal infrastructure which is financed from EU funds, which are very restrictive. One of the main problem in most cities were the opinion of the conservators, or even the border between the private and public land. So those are really big obstacles for us, and many of locations just be expected.
But finally you overcome those issues, those problems.
But another problem was that even if we managed to pick out those areas, there was another problem with the electricity. In many places, there was not possible to supply the stations with the electricity because of lack of infrastructure or the expected power. So those are really huge obstacles.
But as I understand, the main problem was the lack of appropriate experience at the very beginning when this process has started, because no one knows how it should be arranged from the business perspective and regulation perspective. So nowadays, when we are much progressed with the deployment, I think that things seems to be more clear now. So let me address the same question to the Ministry of the Climate, who's in charge of the development of all aspects related to electromobility in Poland, to Mr. Popiołek. So how the ministry currently see the main problems, bottlenecks regarding the deployment of the public charging infrastructure?
I will also start with thank you for inviting me today and possibility to share with you our point of view for the development of charging infrastructure. First of all, I will start with another thing because the question was, what is the main reason that charging infrastructure is not building as quick and there is as quick as could be, and what are the reasons why companies don't see profit in it and I think and I fully agree with all the speakers today that that the core, that the main that the main share, the biggest number of stations should be built by private companies. And when we were creating the Act of Electromobility and Alternative Fuels, we also thought that this is the way that we should go, but the reality was had a different point of view, and I think that the main reason why it is not going as well as we all, not just only me, I think that all of us think that it should be, is the number of electric cars in Poland. As you said, it is 8,000 vehicles, and I think it is my opinion that if there will be the number would be much more bigger, I think that the all private company will see the potential and the income from it, and the infrastructure will develop by itself. There will be no need for regulation, no need for support from the government, just to create the regulation that will fit all your needs and that will move through the process of building as quick as possible. But as you know, Mr. Czyewski, Ms. Adriana, we at the moment in Poland had a mechanism that is enforced, that not private companies, not market is building the infrastructure, but it is built by the distribution system operators, and because the market, the private companies were not interested in building it, because I fully understand that it's not profitable enough to build the station. That's why we are starting. I saw the question that was displayed on the screen. There's a question: what governments will do to support number of EV vehicles? We plan to start at the beginning of next year support program, which will be dedicated to people, to companies, to municipalities that will help them with buying electric car, because I believe in this part of Europe, the main reason of lack of cars is the price of the cars. That's why it is needed from the side of government to support, to reach the goal that we are talking about, to reduce the emission, to help people, to let people breathe by clean air. And this is the one thing. And the second thing is, which it was said by Arne, we have the same situation in Poland. The companies, I believe also GreenWay, waits almost 4 or 5 months for conditions of connection, and it is impossible to plan something in 1 year and finish the station, because after you've got the conditions, you are starting to build, and you need all the allowances, all the documents from the side of from the city, from the building supervisor, that can allow you to start the process. That's why we are working from a couple of weeks with the group of experts, both government and and also private sector, in which is represented by PSPA. that on the regulations that can increase the speed of the process. That's why we would like to build to make such a regulation that will scale up and increase the number of infrastructure in Poland.
Yeah, we are very glad to hear that the ministry is planning to introduce new measures to support the deployment of general electromobility in our countries. And I think the key point still is the incentives for electric vehicles. We had some pilot project this year. We know what was wrong with some assumption around the project. But for the next year, we are very glad to hear that there will be some additional incentives arranged that must speed up the growth of the market. And we are also very glad. Yeah.
Just to say it, and we also understand that the building the number, the increase of the number of electric cars is not the only thing that the government should do. We are also planning to start at the beginning of next year and support measure which will be dedicated to such a companies as you. And we will start to support and give money for operators and companies that are interested in building infrastructure, because we understand and we know that this stage of development of the market, the help from the government is needed and it's crucial.
Yeah, and also we are very glad that finally a new regulation has been issued just a week ago, on last Friday, regarding this special e-tariff dedicated to charging point operators. It's a result of quite long discussion among different stakeholders in Poland, but generally it means that the cost of the connection of public charging point to the network will be much lower than the current ones, which we defined before as one of the main bottlenecks for the further deployment of the charging infrastructure in Poland. By this new regulation, we'll be able to, for example, to increase the number of high power chargers offered to our clients, which I think is very good from the client's perspective. So we really appreciate this, and also really appreciate all those initiatives related to streamline the process of the connection of our chargers into the grid. So this is very good information for our sector. So maybe let's come.
Just one thing to that. We understand and we know that it isn't the situation. We can't think that we know the government know best. I think that the cooperation between government and the sector is necessary, and without the cooperation, and we know that we had the cooperation because we met, we talk with each other. We must build together, because just one actor in the process cannot achieve the success.
So yes, I also may stress the importance of the communication and cooperation between business, let's say, players and public authorities. It's very crucial to understand the needs and the real situation in our sectors. Let me come back maybe to Katowice case, as Aaron said, and Mrs. Kamińska also referred to, that the Katowice was the first city in Poland that achieved the goal that was set in the electromobility bill regarding the number of the required charging points in major Polish cities. So once again, how did it happen that the city of Katowice was so successful here and the other cities are not? What was the key in this initiative?
Maybe because we started our journey with the electromobility 9 years ago. We had the pleasure to become a partner of an international project, and we then watched other European cities like London and local governments, how they did it so many years ago. And for us, it was lesson learned. In 2012, we bought our first electric car to the municipality. Probably it was the first one in Poland, in the city hall. and till today we use it all the time for the promotional and educational reasons, because probably, as you know, more than 50% of population had never had contact with electric car. So so that's why I think that the most important thing is the education. And what happened then? We started prepare some incentives. In 2016, we created the dedicated card for the owners of the electric cars and hybrid cars, the owners of the Katowice citizens who could park for free in the downtown. And we noticed that the number of electrical car was just growing. And it was for us, the signal that we should do something more, that we should, investigate how to build the infrastructure, because there was a bottom need. So the next step in this let's say journey was the COP24. So UN Nation conference, which was held in Katowice in 2018 in December. Let me say that when Act of Electromobility in Poland came into force in February 2018, and COP24 was in December, we had only a few months to make a decision, to pick up the operators, to sign the agreements, arrange all the plots, to settle all the things that need to be prepared for the December of 2018. And believe me, I think that when all of the sides of one, projects are agreed and going ahead on the right direction, it's possible that we as a municipality can do anything to make the settlements with the road, quicker. The operator can do something quicker, because everything was just watching that this is the important thing in the life of our whole region, and it was the great option for us, because when we managed to do it in the city, it was the milestone, because in the same time when we build the infrastructure, two local companies they launched the car sharing based on electrical cars. And at the same time, we managed to build an infrastructure for public transport. We bought our first 10 electrical buses. And the operators of micro mobility came to Katowice with the scooters, electric scooters and kick scooters. So everything related to the electromobility in Katowice was going on right direction. It was, it was.
Yes, I understand.
Right.
So it's all also about planning, strategy, and then proper implementation, involving a number of actors. Thank you for sharing this experience. Let me just ask the last question, because time is running back to Arne. You told us about this successful cooperation between CPOs, DSOs, EV users, where Allego plays a kind of facilitator role. What could be the experience that you want to share with us if you would like to implement similar concepts in our part of Europe? So what is the lesson learned? How to start? Because we see that such a cooperation is crucial, especially for night charging for EV users who don't have own garages.
Yeah. It starts on the working premise that we are a collaborative industry. We are the transport, energy, and digital sector that is coming together. So that requires interaction and coordination. And with public authorities, and we have more than 450 public authorities that we serve, including London now, and we're active in Berlin and in Amsterdam and many other places. In Belgium, we are a CPO as well. What we always see is that public authorities might have an idea of how they'd like to sort of design the system, and that model can differ, and that's fine, because we can cater to that with, of course, a flexible back end, the digital side of operating that network. But it starts with a plan on how you want to shape that market going forward. It's a rationally driven business. So you as a public authority can also play with levers. You can go for concession periods that are 10, 15 years. You can grow in, you can build in quality of service provisions, KPIs in terms of what a CPO should meet, in terms of how they design the system in your respective area. You can even have ideas about what kind of pricing you'd like to apply, although we are not advocates for that. We'd like to see the market do its thing there, but some municipal authorities are very prudent about the delta that exists between home charging for those that have a driveway and can go for home charging as an option, and public charging. They don't want that delta, that difference, to be too large. And if you have ideas about that, how would you shape it? What kind of schemes do you want to create for residents or not? This is a flexible conversation you need to have, you need to align on. But it starts with a plan. And then when you do put it out to tender, of course, the proof of the pudding is in the eating. If you get one party that inscribes and wants to do the job, perhaps that's not an ideal situation. For me, increasingly, it's clear when public tenders are put forward and there's only one party that inscribes, that's not an ideal situation. Then basically, you should want to seek multiple applicants out of the market who want to realize charging in a particular space, because then you're really creating that market dynamics. Because ultimately, it is about a market. It's a rationally driven business. Quality of service is hugely important for EV drivers because they're the central thing of everything which we serve. So then you really get to a competition that you also want to see in your respective space. And if I can add one more thing, what we see is that if the vehicle fleet is at 5 to 6% of your vehicle fleet in a respective area is EVs, battery electric vehicles or plug-in hybrid vehicles, the market's taking off. That conversation becomes a lot easier. If you're below that threshold, you need to facilitate things more and have real a vision about how you want to that you need to roll out that infrastructure in a particular space.
Okay. Thank you very much for your thoughts. I think the most important what you said was this collaboration, proper planning, and involvement of different stakeholders in the process. I think it's important also for other projects in our part of the Europe. So as time is up, we need now to conclude this panel. Aaron, are there any questions that we should ask our panelists?
We got a lot of questions. Unfortunately, with the time, we're not able to ask them all. But we have one question from Pavel, which was how does the Polish government plan to support real estate owners, office, retail, residential, to build out charging points available for both building users and make them publicly accessible? And I think that this question is really directed at Marek.
Yeah, the question is for me. In the program that we are going to start, the program that we are going to start at the beginning of next year, there will be no restrictions regarding what companies can be supported by the government money. That's why it's no problem for retail company, for other companies to apply for the money and get it. Also, we are also planning to support housing association, which are popular in Poland. That there will be possibility for them also to apply for the money and get the money and build charging infrastructure in a residential area. That's why I think that this is the answer for the question. I think there will be no problem from the Polish government and Polish support program to support such companies.
Super. Thank you very much.
So thank you very much for this this panel. I'm always convinced that exchange of thoughts and good practices are good and should be taken into account into future actions. So once again, thank you for interesting discussion. I give the floor back to Aaron.
Thank you, Rafal, and thanks to all of our panelists.
Thanks.
Very much appreciate your time and your insights.